Okay, today we're going to continue research. And as we said yesterday, there's 3 different places that you're going to be going to get your sources. Yesterday we got books. Today we're going to look at finding periodicals. We're going to do that by accessing a database. And tomorrow we're going to look at websites. Okay, as we said, today we're looking at periodicals. Who can tell me what a periodical is? Okay, do you think it's something that's published once or it's published multiple times on a periodical basis? Multiple times. So what are some of the things, articles, that would be published? What would they be published in? Yes, exactly. Magazines, newspapers, and also academic journals. We'll talk about all 3 of those today. You'll find other things on databases as well. Those are primary documents, and we're going to talk about that later too. Okay, so periodicals, we're talking about magazines, newspapers, and those journal articles. When I was your age, before we had digital access to periodicals, I had to actually go hunt down the magazine or the newspaper article or the journal article by actually going to a library, looking in the archives, and using what was called a periodical guide to find the subject and hunt down an issue. Well, in the last 20 years, all of these articles have been digitized, meaning they've either scanned a copy or gotten a digital copy and uploaded them to a database. So the database is where all of the different magazines and newspapers and journals are housed. So instead of having to go to a physical archive in a library and finding old issues, you're going to the database and telling the database what to find by subject and by keywords. So make sure that you understand that what you're retrieving is identical to the physical copy of the magazine, like you see over there. It's an identical digital copy. All right, so we're going to use the EBSCO database. The way that we're going to access that database is through the West Virginia Info Depot portal. We have to go through this portal because the state of West Virginia pays for the databases for us. They're really expensive. We couldn't afford to pay for the databases for every one of you. So by going through this portal, you don't have to pay for it. It's already paid for by our state. If you were just to sit down and Google EBSCO, it would take you to the same login screen. However, it wouldn't let you access anything until you paid. This way, you don't have to worry about it. It's been paid for you. So how are we going to do that? We are going to use the computer. Now, those of you how many of you are using your own computers from home today? Okay. You'll notice over here that I put a web address. It is westvirginiainfodepot.org. In your address bar, the URL bar, please type that in exactly. Every one of you write this down, because if you do research at home, you're not going to have a quick link tab. You're going to have to go type this into the address bar. So please make sure you type that in exactly. If you type in .com, it's not going to take you to the right place. Of course, on the school-owned computers, we do have a quick link to Info Depot. So if you click on Quick Links and click on Info Depot, it will take you to the same place. So you need to do one of those 2 things right now. Okay. So you should be at this screen. Is everyone at this screen? Okay. You'll notice that the state has paid for all kinds of different resources that you can access through InfoDepot. Today we're just focusing on the research database right here, but I do want to point out that under Learning Express Library you do have access to test prep for ACT, SAT, and all the AP exams. All you have to do is click on that and create a new account, and that will allow you to access all of those. I have more information at my desk if you want to pick that up so you can start using that and practicing for your test for whatever you're taking. Today we're going to use Explora, which is the same thing as EBSCO. So go ahead and click on that. And you'll see that it's going to ask you to do a user ID and a password. On the board, it has that written down. It's pretty easy, but you also need to write that down in case you forget it on your paper. The user ID is West, password Virginia, all lowercase. Okay, once you do that, you should be at this screen. Is everyone at this screen? Take a second, log in, and get to this screen. Okay, when you get onto the Explorer screen, you'll notice the first thing, it has a visual search. I always tell students to bypass the visual search and just go directly to advanced search. Click below the search bar on advanced search. Okay, this is going to take you to a search screen that looks like this. The reason I tell you guys to bypass the visual search, this is the page that you're going to be using when you get to college courses. All of the databases go directly to this type of search screen. So you may as well get used to looking at it this way. Also, it gives you a lot more options on this screen than it does just by the visual search. So I think it's much more to your advantage to go ahead and start using it this way. You'll notice, first off, that there are 3 search fields. The first one is just a general search field that you'll do a broad keyword search. This is your main search bar. The sub bars below it are actually qualifier boxes. And what does that mean? That means that basically, these are here for you to qualify or narrow down your search. So, for example, maybe if I'm doing a social research issue, I'm looking at violence in America. Well, that's a very broad topic. It would really be way too broad for me to do a good job of researching. So I need to think of some way to narrow this down. By using the qualifier boxes over here, and, or not, I can refine that search. And is going to tell the database to add a qualifier to that search field. The or is going to tell the computer to search for similar terms. And not is telling the computer to disqualify terms, to eliminate them from the search. Okay, so we have this very broad topic of violence. How I'm going to narrow this down is use another qualifier, and. So what I'm really interested in is maybe violence and video games as a study topic. So by doing that, I'm telling the computer that, you know, the broad topic of violence, but I need all of the articles to have in it some reference to violence in video games. So that narrows down the search to about 600 articles. But maybe I really want to narrow it even a bit more. I'm not interested in studying about how adults, the impact on adults' exposure to violent video games. Maybe I'm more interested in young people. So I can do either two separate searches. Maybe I could add a qualifier and children and teenagers, or I could do one search by disqualifying. Maybe what I could do is just tell the computer that I don't want any of the articles to focus on adults. So I would add the not adults, and that's telling the computer eliminate any article that includes studies of adults. So by doing that, I have narrowed it down even more. So I actually have 577 articles to sift through. It may look like a lot, but actually that's not a bad number to sift through for research purposes. And I'll show you an easy and quick way to do that later on. So let's go back to the advanced search screen. I'm going to show you a few other things. Now on your sheet you'll notice that we have Boolean phrase. That is basically what we're talking about here is the use. We have the use turned on here of these qualifier boxes. It used to be that we'd have to type these qualifier words up here into the main search bar, but now you can use these qualifier boxes with and, or not. Again, the or is for similar terms. So for example, if you wanted to do movies and use or, similar terms, film, that's going to tell the computer to search for any similar terms too. So that would include movies, cinema, film, etc. That would open up the search. There are other Boolean qualifier that you do put up here that you'd still use. So possibly when you're in college, you'll still use some of those symbols. You could use a star symbol and a root word. That will tell the computer to search any term that has a root word of cell or any, this is used primarily if you are doing kind of medical searches where you're using lots of Latin roots, Latin terminology, but that little star symbol would tell that computer, hey, go out there and find anything that is dealing with the root word cell and the star. So that is Boolean, another Boolean term. Also, if you have things like you're looking just for speeches or transcripts, exact words that someone says, you can use this qualifier that is like the quote. Just like when you'd write a quote, you can put the person's name inside the quote, which is kind of interesting. You just put quotes on the side of the person's name, and that should pull up all the transcripts of what that person uttered, what they said. So if you're looking just for transcripts of speeches, maybe Martin Luther King, John Kennedy, or any other person, you put the quotes symbol around it, and that's going to give you just transcripts of what they said and audio clips of what they've said. So again, there's lots of Boolean qualifiers that are advanced that you may use in college. For right now, we're going to stick to the basics and use our drop-down boxes. All right. Something else that's really important is to look down here at the Limit Your Results box. You'll see that right here Our high school version is checked for full text. This means, with that box checked, that everything you guys can access is actually going to be there today. So when this field is clicked, it means that you have access to the full text of that article. If this is not checked, that means it's going to tell you everything that has been published on that topic, but many of those results may not be included in our license agreement. This is not going to be relevant for you guys today, but it will be relevant for you in college. When you take a Marshall course or a WVU course or West Virginia State later, you're going to use their databases and this is not going to be checked. Why do you think that possibly you would ever need to know things that are published out there at different universities, maybe that the university you're at doesn't own? Can you think of a reason? Well, let's say, for example, if you go to Marshall or WVU or State and you have to do research on equine studies, horses. Marshall, WVU, they're not going to own a lot of articles. They're not going to pay for that search topic because they don't have that as a field of study at either school. However, if you unclick this box, you can see that the University of Kentucky has tons of owned articles because that is a big field of study at the University of Kentucky. What you can do is you can use what's called IDS and ask your library through Marshall, State, or WVU to borrow from Kentucky. So you have access not just to what your university pays for, but also what other universities have to offer. That's why you would leave that unchecked. So when you go through the college site, it is not going to be checked for you. You have to make that decision if you want it to only show what Marshall owns or look to other universities too. And actually, I've had to do that quite a lot. So it is something that you'll do at some point in your academic life. Over here, you'll see on your page, you have this as a topic you need to write down as well, peer-reviewed. So what do you guys know about peer review that you've done so far? Because you've had examples of peer review, right? What'd you do?
We made a draft and gave it to a classmate, and they told us what to do, like revise it.
That's exactly what we're talking about here, except on a more academic level. What peer review means is within our academic journals, whoever has conducted the research has to pass along their research to other experts in the field to check it, just like your, classmate helped you check your work. They're going to check it for the methods to make sure it was scientific. They're going to look and make sure everything is accurate and it can be considered what's called empirical, meaning that it could be replicated over and over again. So when you click this for peer review, that's only going to pull up academic journal articles that have gone through the process of peer review. Now this is where you have to really know the assignment and you really have to communicate with your instructor, because you're going to have some assignments where you're expected to use primarily peer-reviewed or only peer-reviewed, or you might have to decide whether it's a topic that you should not use peer-reviewed. Peer review means it could take up to 6 months to be passed around to different experts. If you're doing maybe a paper on the latest trends in technology, do you think that peer review would be used or not?
Not used.
You're right. Why?
Because it wouldn't be new after 6 months.
Exactly. In technology, things are constantly changing. So what you'd probably want to do is maybe look in a trade journal, something like Wired or PC magazine that's talking about the latest developments. So you guys have to be kind of savvy as researchers to know what you're actually looking for. But understand, write it down on your paper too. That's what peer review is, and it's going to only pull up those academic journal articles. Okay. Publication type. Did everyone write down peer review? You'll need to know that for later. Okay, our databases also let you look at publication type. And where you will use this field mainly is to sort through primary documents and secondary documents. Have you heard the term primary document before?
Well, for primary,
You've heard primary. What do you think that means?
like first,
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. A primary document is a document that is created at the first incident that it happened. So if we're talking historically, what are the primary documents, kind of the artifacts that prove that JFK was assassinated? What exactly? Newspaper articles written at the time of the event. What else documented that JFK was assassinated? A document or an artifact? Yeah. Magazines that were published at that time of the event. What else? News broadcast of the event itself. What else do we see here that tell us it happened? Radio broadcast from that time. Pictures, yes. Images, police reports, eyewitness accounts, autopsy reports. Those kind of artifacts are all considered primary documents. And those kinds of things are in your databases too. A secondary document or a secondary source is something where someone has looked at all that primary documentation and they've made some kind of interpretation or an analysis. So if you're reading a book about JFK's assassination, is that primary or secondary? It's secondary because the author had to take all those primary documents and make some analysis. Probably inside that book, you're going to have evidence and those primary documents displayed in the book because that's what the author used. In certain assignments, you may be asked to do both. You need so many primary documents and so many secondary documents. Especially in history classes, you have to go find lots of primary documents in history. So here is where you can tell the computer, hey, pull up only primary documents about this. Or click it off so that it pulls up the secondary as well, things that have analysis or interpretation to them. You can also do document type over here, and it allows you to look through all kinds of different types of documents. Publication, this field right there will let you look just through a specific publication. So maybe if you're in AP Psychology and Ms. Menshaw wants you to only look at Psychology Today from the last 4 years. This is where you type that in. You'd type in Psychology Today, go over here, type 2014 to 2018, and it's only going to bring up those articles. All right, let's go back up to the top so that we can look at a search result. Okay, we have, again, 577 articles to go through. So I'm going to show you the fastest way to do that. But let's look over here on the left-hand side. We still have a refine results bar. So you can, over here, if you've decided, gosh, I really don't want all these older articles, you can, still decide to make it more recent by pulling that publication date over and refining it that way. You can also go to source type, which is really helpful. Again, if your assignment says you need to have 2 peer-reviewed sources and then 3 journalistic sources, you could easily just click on your academic journals and get your 2 peer-reviewed sources. Then go back to your search results, click off of that, And magazines and newspapers are going to be journalistic sources. A reporter went out and reported on an issue. So then you could click on those two types and get your 3 sources from a journalistic source. So again, that makes it easy to sift through all of these different articles. And instead of reading through every article, which would take a lot of time, I'm going to have you look at the abstract so that you can sift through these articles quickly. The way that you're going to do that, click on the title of the article. You'll notice up in the left-hand corner, there's a tab for detailed record. You need to click on that, and it brings up the abstract. So what exactly is the abstract? What does it do?
Like a summary.
Yeah, it gives us a really concise summary of everything that's in the article. This is really important. Some of these academic journal articles could be 50 pages or longer. Let's say I was doing my topic on violence in video games. I pull up this academic journal article and I read through 20 pages before I realize that every bit of information pulled into this study was in Australia. And I'm supposed to be doing a U.S. social issue. I've wasted so much of my time. I could have avoided that by clicking on that abstract, taking 10 to 15 seconds of reading that summary, and I would have immediately known that's what it was about. So as you're going through your list of results, be smart with your time. Click on Detailed Record. Read the abstract. It's going to tell you also all of the information that you would need to know about the article itself, the author, where it was published, the subject headings, and of course that summary. So as I'm looking at this, I can look, this was about the impact of video games and rising violence around the world. So this may be useful to me. If I decide it is, then I just open up the full text of that article, skim it, and then save it. If it's not, I simply go back to my results list and find another article. Don't waste my time reading through it until I look at the detailed record, read that abstract quickly, and decide if I can use it. On the left-hand side, after you click on the full text of the article, there are some tools that are helpful for you too. You can save it automatically to a Google Drive. You guys will actually be saving your PDFs to Weeva. This print function only prints the citation. If you have to print your article, you'll do a Control P within the HTML or PDF, or you can use this print function up here. And the one that's going to be most important to you is this little icon over here. It looks like a paper and it says Cite. When you click on that, it's going to give you the citation information in every style that you could possibly ever want. Now, we're going to have to scroll down to the right style. What style are you using? What style are you using for this paper? MLA. Yeah. So we got to go down to MLA. And you can simply copy and paste this. You do have to check it though, because I've noticed occasionally the author's name will be all caps. I don't know why, but it will happen occasionally. So make sure you don't just kind of copy it, paste it, and not even look at it. Check it to make sure that the formatting is right. Also, when you copy and paste it, what usually happens is the hanging indent doesn't copy with it. So it will bring the second line and third line flush to the margin. You can do two things. In Word Online, there's actually a way to go to paragraph and indent and then create the hanging indent just by copying it and hitting hanging indent. And I can hopefully show you that later. If not, it's not a big deal. All you have to do is click at the top of the first line. Hit enter. It'll put the cursor on the second line and you tab over 5 spaces. Make sure you create the hanging indent or it's going to get counted wrong. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the basics of using EBSCO or any other database? Okay, I'm going to go around and help you with your searches. It really does take some patience, even though this is so much better and easier than the way I had to do it when I was your age. It's still, you have to think like a researcher. You might have to try numerous combinations of keywords to get good results. So don't be frustrated. You will find good material. It may just take several times, and I can help you with that as well. But the biggest thing, save. As soon as you find a good article, save it. There's nothing more frustrating than spending, an hour of your time finding good articles, not saving them, and trying to find them again. Oftentimes, even when I do my best to try to help a student find an article that's been lost, I can't do it because it takes a specific way of placing your keywords. It won't bring it up again. So save yourself that headache. Immediately save it, okay? All right, you guys have the rest of this class period to find good articles.